Chris Kelsey here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Run, Matt and I are going to discuss Godzilla, King of the Monsters, a sequel to the 2014 film that I rather enjoyed. And we're also going to review the Netflix original The Perfection with Alison Williams. Basically what happens when you want to become the best musician you can at something, and then there's also somebody else who's also really good, so maybe you like them, but maybe you don't, and then Steven Weber shows up and things then get weird. And then we're going to tell you what our 5 favorite Godzilla foes are. So let's start everything off with a little bit of the King.
Our world is changing. The mass extinction we feared has already begun, and we are the cause. We are the infection. But like all living organisms, the Earth unleashed a fever to fight this infection. Its original and rightful rulers, the Titans. For thousands of years, these creatures have remained in hiding around the world. And unless all the Titans are found, our planet will perish, and so will we. They are the only guarantee that life will carry on.
So that's basically your synopsis, right? I think that pretty much covers it. So yeah. This film takes place a few years after the the relaunch of the Godzilla franchise here in the States. Godzilla's gone back into semi-retirement. I mean, he still does like photo shoots and does certain things every now and then for the fans. But for the most part, he's just on his own now. And there is a rogue group trying to, Matt, get and activate these other Titans around the world in an attempt to cause a natural event that basically takes out people for climate change, and then the world will be reborn, and we'll be working in partnership with the Titans or the kaiju or whatever you want to call them to have a better rebirth for the world. And this is the one, Matt, where we go all out, right? So now we get. Last time we had the Motu. Is that what do they call the Motu? Right, that's what they call.
Yeah, the Mutos.
Mutos, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But this time is when all the classic characters come back. So I've been looking forward to this Bad Bear, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
If I recall correctly, you weren't as big a fan of the 2014 relaunch, though I called it, I think, perfect summer blockbuster entertainment if you hack off the Aaron Taylor Johnson human angle. Which I think totally doesn't work. They try too hard to shoehorn a human interest story into that film in an attempt to make us care about Taylor Johnson and his family. And you don't. You just want to see Godzilla bust some stuff up and beat up another monster.
Right.
So we corrected all the wrongs from that film, and is now this more an even better and more improved quintessential summer Godzilla blockbuster movie.
No, we haven't, Chris. We have not corrected anything that was wrong with the first one. In fact, we've leaned even more into it. Granted, I don't know if it's human interest story, but the human elements of this thing are completely just dumb. They're just dumb, and they're not particularly well done. Granted, I'm criticizing a movie that's about giant monsters beating each other up, but still. A lot of the dialogue and performances are just cringeworthy, and a lot of them and they're from good actors, man. It's like I just couldn't. I don't know. I was really disappointed. But as far as 90% of the monsters beating up on each other, I was having a good old time with that, and that was actually enough to sell me for quite a bit of the film.
All right, my reaction walking out of this thing is yes. This is exactly, Matt, what I wanted. You're entirely wrong on this. Now, it doesn't feel as like, so the human interest part was kind of like, just like an add-on. It's like, well, we need something for people to connect with in this movie. Well, this one, though, it's weak, all right? It serves to forward the plot. All right, it exists. Granted, it just exists to forward us to the next round of utter destruction. But I think the film is better for it. It's not some outside, parallel storyline. It's integral to the storyline in regards to the fact that it just kind of keeps pushing us forward. While the other one is just a distraction. So for that, I'm willing to pass. I'm willing to give it a much wider pass than I did the first time out. Now, there are some ridiculous moments in this film. Particularly, there's 2 zoom-ins. I don't know if you caught, like with Rodan, where there's a zoom and he like turns his head and looks almost right at the camera.
Yeah. And
Godzilla's got one of those too. But this is what I'm talking about, man. There's some dynamic shots with this thing. It's got some fantastic fight scenes. There's a dusting of social commentary. Just like all the better films, like the original one. If you really watch the original Godzilla film, which is currently available as a Criterion release, that thing's pretty terrifying for the message it's trying to relay to you. This tries to do the same, not as well, but still, for me, it is the roller coaster ride of the summer for me. I absolutely love this thing, and I loved watching the monsters. I don't know if I count... Is Endgame considered part of the summer? When did that come out? February, March?
Yeah, it was in our summer bracket, so we're counting it as the summer.
Fine. But still, when it comes to monsters beating each other up, I don't think you can go wrong here. This is a movie, Matt, that knows what it is, and it revels in it. And I loved every minute of this thing.
All right, so I just need to pump the brakes just a little bit. Now, I know Chris...
You can try.
Chris said that I'm wrong on this. I have to say that the general
Your critique is too strong. How about that?
I think the general consensus is signed on with me from our esteemed critical colleagues. So I think you're in the minority here. And
doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Here's the thing. Godzilla movies are a very niche thing, especially all of the Toho original ones, because they're absolutely ridiculous and campy. Mm-hmm. And this is more like that. And that is not going to have a broad appeal, which makes me nervous, or as broad of an appeal, to a wide audience. This thing, Godzilla's always been a niche thing, especially here in the States. And I'm all for, I really want to see Kong versus Godzilla, but yeah, I think them leaning harder into the kind of Godzilla what's the word I'm looking for here? Like the kind of rote thing that they've always done has really, I think catered to the more hardcore fans, such as yourself. Mm-hmm. Whereas I don't think that as a general audience, for people who didn't like those movies, it's not going to win any converts, and it's going to say, oh, this is stupid, and it's going to hurt the rest of them that could be coming out.
Well, first off, a couple things. I don't know if I'm cutting off my nose to spite my face with this, because may not get any better or good Godzilla movies because they're leaning into what is kind of the Godzilla fandom to begin with. I mean, for Pete's sake, Matt, we've made the Twin Fairies canon in this new series. I don't know if you caught that. But
I missed that. No, I missed the Twin Fairies. I was on the lookout, but I missed them.
With the Mothra, when they're doing the initial discovery of Mothra, there's the stuff with all the sets of twins in the family. It's groups of twins that have kind of been around or guarded Mothra through the years.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's fine. And I got to be honest with you, part of me is worried that the Kong film, if it does come to pass, I don't understand how he could possibly stand up to Godzilla. I know it's a ridiculous statement, but I would think like radioactive atomic breath is going to take out a gigantic gorilla. So I don't quite get where they're going to go with this one. Maybe it'll be fun and it'll be good, but I feel like once you get King Ghidorah in here, and I said for the longest time King Ghidorah, but I think I've been wrong my entire life. Mm-hmm. But he's the granddaddy of the bad guys, and I mean you've I don't want to. There's a phrase that I hate, but it fits so aptly. But I'm still not going to say it. You've emptied out the bag of tricks, I think, with this film, and I think almost maybe the Kong one's going to seem too much of a fan service kind of clicky thing, but. Either way, I don't know. I think this thing was a ton of fun, and I don't know. I don't understand what you're expecting. Right? Like people are what they're going in is some. Do you want some like existential kind of humanity facing extinction type of a thing going into this, and long shots of people looking wistfully off into the distance as the world crumbles around them, contemplating why we were even here to begin with?
No, it's not what I want. I just want something that doesn't make my eyes roll back into my head. And granted, there are some huge moments in this, like, the whole bowing to the monsters thing. It's like, okay, like, that was kind of cheesy. But they don't pull it out just once. They do it twice. And just the whole thing with the Monarch and Bradley Whitford is, somebody who I generally like. I mean, even he, his performance and just the lines he had to say, and just every time he was on screen, I was like, man, it's just not working for me. And that's just kind of like the thing with this film. Like, I had a good time while I was watching it. It's generally pretty fun. And I'm with you. I was kind of like, yes, I don't see what everybody's talking about it's not good. But as it sat with me for a few days, the flaws started to become more apparent to me. And it just makes me concerned because I would like to see more of these things. And I just don't think I don't know if they've overcorrected here.
I don't see an overcorrection issue like we did with like Man of Steel to Superman Returns, right? Where we said, well, it's not enough fighting. All he does in that film is lift things. I don't, and then we just abandon everything else and make Superman and just go with straight violence. I think that this is it's exactly what the film says it's supposed to be. Everybody in it knows what they're doing, and they're hamming it up, and it is a ton of fun, Matt. I'm giving Godzilla King of the Monsters a B+. Where are you coming down?
I'm going to give it a B-. Enjoyable, but flawed.
I don't think we're that far off. I enjoyed it more. I found it less flawed.
There you go.
Right there on the poster. It's going on the Blu-ray case.
Crispy Descalzo. I enjoyed it more, less flawed.
So, if you had a chance to see Godzilla King of the Monsters, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Moving on, coming up on Blu-ray this upcoming Tuesday, June 11th. It's a film that caused a little bit of controversy there for people who are jerks. Let's hear a clip.
This is a nightmare.
I've had better nightmares.
Hey. So that thing just stopped doing whatever the hell it was doing.
What do we got?
Whatever signal it was sending finally crapped out.
I thought we bypassed the battery.
Well, we did. It's still plugged in. It just stopped.
Reboot it. Send the signal again.
Hey, we don't even know what this is.
Fury did. Just do it, please. You tell me the second you get a signal. I want to know who's on the other end of that thing.
Where's Fury?
So that, of course, is, spoiler, I guess, the stinger end credits clip from Captain Marvel. Brie Larson hits the home theater circuit. You can get it from Best Buy. You get a steelbook. Target gives you a 40-page digibook. There's alternate movie versions. I'm not quite sure what that means, but they include intro, I should say, by the director and screenwriter, as well as a commentary with those same individuals. There's 6 featurettes, Matt, 6 deleted scenes, a gag reel, and then some exclusive stuff to the digital release. Though I believe if you do buy a physical copy and you get that digital copy, you'll be able to watch those like through iTunes, whatever your preferred digital retailer is. The film The Mustang, which is supposed to be a critical darling, is being released. It's a story of Roman Coleman. He is a violent convict, Matt, who's given a chance to participate in a rehab therapy program involving the training of wild Mustangs, and it changes his life. A film we discussed in the show, Captive State. This is the one with John Goodman, Matt, where he fights the aliens. That seemed like a great idea, but didn't seem to really, unfortunately, pan out. And it's done by the director of the first Planet of the Apes relaunch film, which is really good. This one, though, not so much. Includes audio commentary with the director, producer, co-writer Rupert Wyatt, and producer David Crockett, as well as some making of featurettes. The romantic young adult film 5 Feet Apart is being released, includes audio commentary with the director and a bunch of featurettes on the making of the film, as well as some deleted scenes and an alternate ending. The TV series, the miniseries, I have to say, I Am the Night by Patty Jenkins, starring Chris Pine, I believe about the Black Dahlia murders, in some tangential way, is being released. I hear it's quite good, Matt, and I'm wanting to catch up with it, so you can see that on demand or buy the Blu-ray. The Leprechaun returns. 25 years ago, a young woman and her friends stopped an evil leprechaun by shoving a four-leaf clover in its mouth. I'm glad it's mouth. And watching its melting body fall into a well in North Dakota. What happened to his pot of gold is anyone's guess. Well, today their property is run by the AU sorority house of a premier eco-science college, Matt. And of course, something happens. Includes Going Green with the director Stephen Kostansky featurette, and then a behind-the-scenes making of as well. Sinatra and Palm Springs, a place he called home, is a documentary about Sinatra and his time in the small desert oasis 100 miles from East L.A. It was his home for 50 years, Matt, and during his brief yet turbulent marriage to Ava Gardner, Palm Springs was center stage, and for the rest of his life, the Rancho Mirage compound on Frank Sinatra Drive was a sanctuary he called My Heaven. New to Blu-ray, Criterion is releasing Swing Time, starring Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. They play a performer and a gambler, and they travel to New York City to raise $25,000 that he needs to marry his fiancée, only to become entangled with a beautiful, aspiring dancer. Includes a new 2K digital restoration, an audio commentary from 1986, and some other new interviews and essays as well. Scream is releasing The Entity. Carla Moran awakens one night, Matt, to find herself being beaten and assaulted by an unseen presence. Terrified of what's happening to her and shunned by friends and family who think she's lost her mind, she seeks the help of parapsychologist. 5 new interviews featured on this, as well as a new audio commentary with the author-filmmaker Daniel Cremy. They're also releasing, that is Scream Factory, Frankenstein Created Woman. It's a brand new 2K remaster of the film, a new audio commentary with author-film historian Steve Haberman, as well as Konstantin Nasir. 2 interviews as well with cast and crew. Shout Select is releasing Jeffrey, the romantic comedy drama starring Steven Weber, Patrick Stewart, Michael T. Weiss, Sigourney Weaver, Nathan Lane, Olympia Dukakis. It was a landmark film discussing homosexual relationships in the age of AIDS. Includes a new audio commentary with Steven Weber, new interview with Weber, and an interview with the producer Mark Balsam. Shout is also releasing Can't Stop the Music, the pseudo-autobiography of disco's The Village People. Includes a new interview with Village People's Randy Jones. I don't remember which one Randy Jones was. I'm going to say Cowboy. New audio commentary with the fabulous Alan Carr, producer-director Jeffrey Schwartz, and comedy writer Bruce Valanche. Warner Archive is releasing None But the Brave, directed by Frank Sinatra. A crippled C-47 transport crash lands in a remote Pacific island, Matt. For the Marines aboard, World War II becomes smaller but no less deadly. The atoll is held by the Japanese platoon, also cut off from its command. The Michael Caine film Kidnapped is being released on Blu-ray as well. Coming out on 4K for the first time, 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. Your straight-to-DVD pick of the week, Matt, is Wakaliwood Super Action Volume 1, Who Killed Captain Alex, and Bad Black. Welcome to Wakaliwood, Uganda's home of the best movies and the vanguards of the do-it-yourself commando cinema. Under the guidance of writer, director, producer Nabawana Isaac Godfrey Jeffrey, also known as IGG, and with producer star Alain Salali Hafmanis, this crack crew of self-taught filmmakers and martial arts aficionados produces dozens of gonzo action films in the Kampala ghetto with budgets that rarely exceeded $200. Utilizing scrap parts to build computers, machine guns, and a full-sized helicopter, these real-life superheroes inspire more heart, imagination, and soul than 1,000 Hollywood blockbusters. I like to, Matt, there's a little note, too, that these films are fueled by love and created with do-it-yourself equipment. Please approach the technical quality of the transfers with empathy. Includes director's commentaries on both films, welcome videos for 14 countries, music videos, interviews, and news clips, and more. Matt, what should we be streaming this week?
So available on Amazon Prime, Stop Making Sense, the celebrated documentary about the Talking Heads on their final farewell tour, is available. It is a very entertaining film, excellent concert footage, and no matter what you think about the Talking Heads, it is something that will keep your attention. So I think you should check it out to get a slice of 80s life.
I'm a big Talking Heads fan, so but I've never seen it. I must admit, I was always more of a Greatest Hits fan, and only in the past year that I got more into the Talking Heads. I've picked up each of the albums on CD and a couple of them on vinyl. So
nice.
I like David Byrne a lot too. I think that's what it is. I got into him later and always liked the Greatest Hits of the Talking Heads, and then decided to dive in. Good pick. All right, Matt. Let's move on then. Let's speak a little bit about The Perfection.
Oh God, I'm gonna puke. Oh God. Are those bugs? These are normal ones? Oh God. What if that guy last night, what if he had that Ebola thing they were talking about? What if he had it, the one from Hunan? What if I caught it?
No, you didn't catch that.
What if I did?
You didn't.
What if I did? Look what's happening. What if I did?
You didn't catch it. You didn't.
Oh God, I'm okay.
Hey. Lizzie, you have to sit down.
I'm sick. What if you're sick too? They said it was contagious. What if you have it too?
I'm not sick.
Oh God, what if you were?
I'm not sick. It's gonna be okay.
It's not. Stop saying it. It's not gonna be okay. Stop saying it.
Okay, Matt, why don't you try and do your best and tell the folks at home what The Perfection, currently streaming on Netflix, is all about.
You know, I always feel like you take some perverse pleasure on giving me the difficult ones.
I do.
Yeah. All right, so Alison Williams stars as Charlotte, a former cello prodigy who left her music school to take care of her dying mother. When her mother passes away, she gets back in contact with the head of the school, Anton, and his wife Paloma, Anton played by Steven Weber, where they introduce her to their newest prodigy, who's even better and more famous than she was, Lizzie, played by Lindsay Browning. And they kind of get together, Logan Browning, excuse me. They kind of get together, they kind of hit it off, decide that they're going to go on a tour of China together, and that's when things start to go off the rails, and I won't go any further into plot details than that.
Yeah, that is probably an apt description, or at least it is. Listen, Matt, this thing is bonkers, right? I mean, it is patently ridiculous. Every time you think it's going... let me look for that. Every time you think it can't get any weirder or more bizarre or evil, it takes you to a new area with a brand new poisoned beverage in your hand. I mean, I think one of the successes of this thing is that it doesn't really telegraph what type of film it is. Well, I mean, it's a horror film, but it doesn't telegraph what exactly it's going to do, what turn you're going to take next. And I think that makes it enjoyable. I think my issue is I'm not sure how campy I'm supposed to take all of this. Right? I'm not convinced that the director, Shepard, is aware of the film that he's making. At least maybe he's not knowingly winking at me. I can't tell.
Right.
Like either this thing is a beautifully rendered mind F that just gets more and more ridiculous as it plays out, or they tried to be really clever and the thing just collapses entirely.
Right.
I don't know, but it is a lot of fun. Where do you come down?
Yeah, so I'm with you. Like, I wasn't sure. Like, I knew very little about this film, and really the synopsis that I gave is all I really knew about it. As I watched it, you know, I've seen a lot of horror movies. We're big horror movie fans here on the show, and so I'm trying to figure out which way this is going, exactly like Chris is saying. And, you know, they keep giving me all these feints, and I was really into it for a while there. But I think you're right, Chris. I want to say that this thing is campy, and if it is supposed to be campy, then it's very successful. Then it's maybe, but I don't think that that's right. I think they are trying to be clever and trying to play this thing seriously with their twists. And honestly, I don't want to ruin anything, but after like the second or third twist, I'm like, okay, this thing is, I can see where they're going with this. They're going to give me a twist every 20 minutes or something. And I hate that. Like, at some point it just starts being ridiculous and it stops being clever. And I think that's it kind of, like you said, it collapses under its own weight of its cleverness.
Yeah, I think that. Now, listen, I can't decide. I really, really enjoyed Steven Weber in this. I won't say anything more than that, but I think Alison Williams is a weak point for me. She doesn't seem to bring any of the, how do I put this? I don't know, the earnestness and believability that she does, like in Get Out, where she's absolutely endearing / terrifying in that film.
Right.
Her character here, the believability didn't hit me as much. Though granted, again, if we're leaning into camp, then it works perfectly. But I don't know if I buy it.
Yeah.
Because the last 20%, 25% of the film is really different and goes off a cliff that I don't know it's led us to. So I still can't decide. I watched this yesterday and I'm still on the fence. I don't know. I have C+ and B- like scratched out and rewritten over and over again here. And I'm going to go C+, I guess. I can't decide. It's man, there's parts about this thing I loved, another part I don't know.
Yeah, I think going with the lower grade is the correct one here. I think for me it's going to get a C. I think we're giving them too much credit in thinking that they're trying to do something subversive and knowingly campy, just because in some of it it's just so deadpan and just so straight-laced serious, and like it doesn't have that feel to it. I know what camp looks like, and this isn't it. And like the really parts where you would think it would come up, and I think they're just trying to be. I think they've watched too many M. Night Shyamalan movies, and they didn't take the hard lessons he had learned. So I'm going to give it a C.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed probably the first half of this, but then it subverts my expectations, but I don't necessarily think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that goes on the box. No, they're not going to put that on the box. They'll cut it off right there. It subverts your expectations. ...
Right.
Matt Howell, the first run,
right. Hey, whatever. Hey, no press is bad press in our case. Okay.
That's very true. If you had a chance to see Their Perfection, again, currently streaming on Netflix, just an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. All right, Matt, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk about the big boys' best enemies. Let's hear a clip.
Look, I'm tired of talking to you about this. I want my son. I want to see my son. I want to know that he's all right. This guy knows. He knows where he is. Muskuwa Dokoda. I want my son. And I want my bag and discs. And I want to talk to somebody in charge, not you. No, not you. I'm done talking to you. All right? Well, you're looking at me right now like I'm in a fish tank, right? That's fine, because I know what happened here. And you keep telling everybody that this place is a death zone, but it's not. You're lying. Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there. I'm right, aren't I?
I think the saddest thing compiling this list, Matt, for me, because all we did was just hear a clip from the 2014 Godzilla there, is how few Godzilla movies I've seen. I mean, there are a ton of these things.
Yeah,
now,
there are.
I haven't seen any of the non-Tohos. I saw Shin Godzilla, which came out a couple years ago. That actually played here. And I thought it was pretty good. That was different. That was more of a classic spin on Godzilla, where he's not so much an anti-hero. Was he an anti-hero, Godzilla?
He went from monster to like straight up protector of humanity.
Yeah.
Good guy.
So over the years, he has fought a bunch of cool cats. My Godzilla watching is limited, though I have seen some really good stuff that I could recommend to you. So Matt, I'll start everything off. I'll give you the ultimate number one.
Okay.
My number 5 is Rodan, who does show up in King of the Monsters. He's the gigantic pterodactyl. showed up originally in Ghidorah, three-headed monster. And I just have always, we'll talk about designs later, but Ghidorah is just a classic Godzilla villain. And he's the whole, it's just, again, I think I fall under where I'm limited. So, and then there's other ones too that don't quite count as bad people. But like Biollante, is it Biollante? The nature one is awesome, but didn't quite make the cut. But Rodan is he's a classic one, so he ends up being my number 5.
Okay. Yeah, he didn't make the cut for me. Just because I mean, he's one of the most well-known ones, but I think it's because he had his own movie, and he's kind of like one of those ones that they shoved in a little later. So anyway, so my number 5, I think would be hard-pressed for people to think it's one of the best ones, I think, for the big Godzilla fans, but it holds a special place in my heart because it was the first Godzilla film that I owned on VHS when I was a kid, and I watched it over and over and over again. So it's Megalon, the giant beetle who fights Godzilla, and I can't tell if it's sentient. I think it's sentient android named Jet Jaguar, and it is literally all of the most ridiculous things about Godzilla are in this film, and for better or worse, and in my case, for the better. So I have a real affection for that one.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I'm sorry, and Rodan's a pterodon, I guess, not a pterodactyl, and he did not show up initially. In my notes said as in Ghidorah, he actually had his own film first. It was the first color film too that Toho made, and one of the first ones to be released here in the U.S. So sorry about that. Clearly, I'm unprepared. Listen, people, if you had any idea what the last 24 hours of my life have been right now, you would. Good times. All right. Jet Jaguar may make an appearance later, though not in my top 5. So keep listening after the show. My number 4, then, is one of the few, I think the 2 newer Godzilla films I've seen, as I mentioned earlier, Shin Godzilla, but then also Final Wars with Monster X / Kaiser Ghidorah. I think Monster X, I don't know if you're familiar with, he's a pretty badass design. He's got like a exoskeleton, and what's so great about Monster X is that he eventually then transforms, or his second body, then he becomes Kaiser Gojira, which is a kind of a combination, and he's got 4 legs instead of 2, and he doesn't quite have Ghidorah's powers. He's got his own little bag going, but still, he is a badass guy. I mean, he's much more, out of a lot of the films, he's much more vicious than some of the other monsters were. So it's quite a trip. And Final Wars, you can actually, I think, watch right now on Sony Crackle. It's cheesy as all hell. I believe it was the 50th anniversary film, too, that was released. And it was the last Toho Godzilla before Shin Godzilla was released. So it is a hoot. If you're a Godzilla fan and you haven't seen Final Wars, you got to check it out. So Monster X / Kaiser.
All right. Very good. So my number 4 is Gigan. He's like a bird, cyclops lizard with sword hands and a buzzsaw in his chest. But it's all bio. He's not like a robot. I mean, he appears several times, and he is kind of like he's like the Starscream of the bunch. He's always seems to be the henchman, but he keeps trying to go after Godzilla. And I always thought it was pretty cool, just by the simple fact that he could shoot lasers out of his eyes. And at one point, he trades in his sword hands for chainsaw hands. And how can you not be all about that? So yeah, Gigan's my number 4.
Nice. No, that's a good one. Speaking of shooting lasers out of your eyes, my number 3 is Mechagodzilla. What's interesting about Mechagodzilla 2 is that initially he was a bad guy alien. Aliens sent him here to kind of be a scout to help conquer the Earth and lead an invasion force, and Godzilla fights him off. And then shows up on the planet and kind of kills him with the help of another monster whose name I'm blanking on. But in later films, he's actually created by Earth to protect it from Godzilla. And he's got finger missiles and laser eyes, and he kind of changes. There's different versions of him throughout the years. He's been reused a bunch of different times in different movies too. But I mean, you got your big ass, cool Transformer looking, robot Godzilla, and I don't think you can really go wrong with that. So that's why I made Mechagodzilla my 3.
There you go. Okay, so my number 3 is Destroya, which is from the newer Godzillas. This is a giant winged beast that actually manages to kill Godzilla. So as I think only one of the ones who is straight up able to defeat him, even a feat that even King Ghidorah couldn't do by the end of the film. I had to put Destroya as number 3.
I have not seen. I don't think I saw a picture of him when I was looking it up, but it's pretty badass. But I have not seen the one he's in. So Godzilla Unleashed, is that the one?
Yep, that's the one.
So I gotta check that out. All right, my number 2 is gonna surprise you.
Okay,
it's King Ghidorah.
Oh,
you'd think he'd be number 1,
right?
But he is the ultimate, as I said. He is the ultimate bad guy. It's the 3-headed monster, the dragon heads, and the lightning breath, and all the other good stuff. I mean, when you think of Godzilla villains, who do you think of? This is who you think of: King Ghidorah. So he's easily my number 2. That's right, folks. My number 1 is going to be all. Well, I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it, but still, yeah. So Ghidorah is number 2.
That's funny because King Ghidorah is also my number 2. He is the most probably iconic villain, but he's not my favorite. So, yeah, I think I know who your number 1's going to be.
Do you?
But go ahead. I think I do.
I'm going to get all SJW on you, Matt. It's
okay.
Us.
Okay.
We are Godzilla's number 1 foes. He would not exist if it weren't for the nuclear testing that we did. We're the ones that woke him up. We're the ones that created the monster. And remember, he was an allegory, right, initially, for the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Right.
And absent any those events happening, we may never have had Godzilla. And in the end, we will be his pets. So, in the end, I think we are the greatest foes.
Well, you should have gone first if you were going to be clever, Chris. Man.
What do you got? What's your 1?
All right, my number 1 is Mechagodzilla. I don't know. I think just because he's a villain, I'll say antagonist that's been used so many times, and just like it's like fighting, the technology version of yourself, and just the fact that he can do things like shoot missiles out of his fingers, just makes him my favorite. I'm always a sucker for giant robots. Giant monsters and giant robots, yes please.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. So honorable mentions, I had Gagan, as I said earlier, Biollante, Megalon, Jet Jaguar, which was also in the Megalon film.
Yep.
And Mothra, I guess, right? They fight a little bit in the Mothra.
Yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, so I went with the only one I had on there that was Biollante, just because Godzilla crossed with a rosebush or something is ridiculous. And Ghidorah, the smog monster, the very heavy-handed, allegory for pollution destruction, fighting the heavy-handed allegory for radioactive destruction.
So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Good times. Who are your 5 favorite Godzilla? I guess antagonists is the better way to go, or foes, I guess, works. Either way. People trying to go up against the king, trying to bring him down. You best not miss. Who did we forget? Who's your favorite? Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Coming up next week, Matt, what's it going to be? Oh, boy. The latest series of X-Men films comes to a close. The Fox era of X-Men ends with Dark Phoenix. Can it possibly be worse than Ratner's Last Stand? We will find out together. We're also going to check out the other music biopic. No, not Bohemian Rhapsody again. We're going to talk about Rocket Man, the Elton John film. Matt, maybe we should say that's a good top 5. What music or musician or band do you want to see on the big screen next? So
interesting.
Pocket that. We'll figure that out. In the interim, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just do search for The First Run. Scroll. Eventually you will find us. What else? You can also go over to Apple Podcasts and give us a quick review. That's how other people will find the show. Let me tell you what happened. I got stuck at the airport for 3 GD hours, and I didn't get home till 3:30 this morning. Did I also tell you, too, I got hit in softball, Matt? I have a gigantic bruise on my ankle that is killing me right now.
Yeah, you showed me. It was pretty gnarly.
Oh, it's so much pain right now. I don't know. It feels like it's getting worse. It looks better, but it hurts. I'm hoping I'm not going to have a stroke or something from a blood clot or something. We'll see what happens.
I'm holding out hope for you, buddy.
What I'm saying is life is pain.
Mm-hmm.
What about Ma? Do we want to check out Ma at some point?
I'm not. I'd be okay with not, but I'll follow your lead. We'll see.
Men in Black and Shaft's coming. There's so much stuff coming up. The Dead Don't Die. Well, anyway. All right. We're going to go ahead and then take an extended break, and we will see you all soon.